Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in to Tune In Tuesday. We're here now for session 4B of the One Faith of Original Christianity, the power of believing. We're on a spiritual adventure, exploring the vistas of faith, and I have the privilege of teaching the best biblical students in the world who love God, who believe God, and walk for God, and apply what they've learned, and desire to even be better at it, but who still hunger and thirst after more righteousness. It truly is an honor for me to sit at my desk and prepare each session's teaching to impart to you, to bless you, to motivate you and heal you. Tonight's teaching is no exception. We've reached a point in the class where we've covered quite a bit about believing, and it's time to nail it down. To some, this may seem elementary, but I want everyone who attends this class to be up to speed, because who knows how far this will go, and people who may not have had the same kind of in-depth background as you and I, many of us have had, may be listening to this, so I want to nail it down. Jesus was a believing machine. See a need, decide to get involved, get revelation, believe, work a miracle. See a need, decide to get involved, get revelation, believe, heal. See a need, decide to get involved, get revelation, believe, teach somebody something they need to know. Over and over and over again. Jesus was a believing machine, bringing the power, information, and deliverance from the spiritual dimension into our space-time dimension, where we need it so desperately. John 14:12 declares that the works that he did, we shall do also. Therefore, he taught the apostles to do the same. Would you like to function in the same way? Nothing has changed since the first century. Jesus blazed the trail, and whosoever will may follow. I know that many people in my audience have accomplished great feats of believing and probably could teach about it as well as I. But there may be participants further on who would be benefited by this. So here we go. Believing is an important fact of life. It is effective within two realms, spiritual and physical. In the physical realm, wise men throughout the ages have observed that people who have positive expectations about their lives and situations fare better than those who worry and fret about them. Norman Vincent Peale's book, The Power of Positive Thinking, is an international bestseller, having sold over 5 million copies. Many motivational speakers have made their fortunes promoting the benefits of positive believing. Napoleon Hill wrote, "Think and Grow Rich." It promotes techniques of believing that work for saint or sinner alike. Athletic coaches have attested to the power of believing, having witnessed the results when they convince their players that they can rise to new heights, accomplish things they'd never done before, to defeat the opposing team. Professional athletes have perfected their steps to psych themselves up for each game in order to put themselves in the best frame of mind to win. Olympic gymnasts and divers visualize themselves going through their motions over and over again. It works. Believing works in the physical realm. And the only ones who try to convince us otherwise are the losers. Believing is what prompts people to take action when under other conditions they might not. thus opening up new possibilities that were not there before for them. Believing enables people to reach down into their guts and push harder than they ever have before or thought possible to achieve feats which others who have never gone there deem superhuman. Believing is what puts us in the best position to achieve victory no matter what the challenge is, or opposition, or our condition. Even when all that is involved is purely in the physical realm, even with those who do not worship God, even with sinners, believing works. But when we add God to the equation, that's when the fireworks really fly. This is because when it is only physical, and we human beings focus our psyche by believing to accomplish things, we get what is proportional to our ability. But when we add God and ask and believe Him to intervene, we get what's according to His ability. Many things have been accomplished in the physical realm because people believed. Even terrible things, crimes, wartime actions, have been accomplished because the actors convinced themselves that they could do it and then acted. But I am not concerned with that. I want to do good. I want to heal. I want to solve difficult situations with the wisdom and power of God. I want to unleash the infinite power from beyond the cosmos. I'm teaching about believing God, about bringing the impossible to pass by means of tapping into the spiritual realm. Believing is the connection between the two realms, spiritual and physical. Jesus was the example, and the Bible's the manual on how to do it. Believe God. How does that work? Believing is something of the heart. We live on the live stage of our mind. The Greek word for our mind is nous, N-O-U-S. There, we rehearse the thoughts, sights, voices, and other stimuli which come from our senses and memories. It is from there, on that live stage, that we direct our speech and actions by which we interact with the world outside of us. The Greek word for that live stage, which is our consciousness, is phronema. Our conscious thoughts, feelings, and desires. We also have an unconscious part of our minds, which holds memories, involuntary process controls, habits, instincts. The Greek word for our subconscious is dianoia. Thoughts are indexed in and out of our memories by means of association. Something comes onto the stage of our mind via whatever channel, which reminds us by association of something else stored in our memory, which we pull out and then rehearse on the live stage in our consciousness. You don't need me to explain this, for we do it all our awake hours. But where we in Western culture are weak is in the disciplines of the mind. Plus, here in the USA, affluence has made us lazy. We also ignorantly expose ourselves to trauma, often by watching violent content on TV or in movies, and then wonder why we have such bad dreams. Or we wonder why we seem to be mentally assailed by our own thoughts. Oh, you're no good. Oh, you can't do that. You won't succeed. Why? Try. Well, is your mind working against you? We can make it work for us. Our minds are incredible tools which we can use to accomplish great feats. Many people just don't use their minds very much. Jesus challenged the apostles to do so. Look at Mark chapter 8. Mark chapter 8, verse 13. It goes on here and says, he left them and entered into the ship again, departed to the other side. Now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, neither had they in the ship with them more than one loaf. And he charged them, saying, take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the leaven of Herod. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, it's because we have no bread. And when Jesus heard it, he said to him, why do you reason, because you have no bread? Perceive ye not yet, neither understand? Have ye your heart yet hardened? Yeah, the apostles had hard hearts. Something happened that they didn't like earlier. I teach that in another teaching, but he turned away from them and turned to the people instead when they had gone out to be by themselves in that meeting that preceded the miracle of the loaves and the fish. So they were kind of selfish. They wanted them to themselves so they could tell Jesus about all the great things they had done when they went out 2 by 2. So their heart was hardened, it says it was. And then Jesus said in verse 18, having eyes, see ye not, and having ears, hear ye not, and do ye not remember? Those are keys on how to use your mind. Part of our minds are occupied with subconscious, involuntary processes like controlling heartbeat or digestion. Then there are some which are on the borderline, like breathing. We can control its depth and frequency, or we can relegate it to automatic if we don't. Most of the things we do involve a combination of voluntary and involuntary acts, like walking, for instance. We don't consciously control or are even aware of all the muscle movement necessary to balance and walk. We just walk after we determine our direction and speed. If we had to consciously control everything, we wouldn't have any free mental time to pursue anything else. Beat heart, breathe lung, beat heart, balance trunk muscle, leg muscle, swing arm to compensate weight, beat heart, breathe lung, balance trunk muscle, push forward with foot muscles. Wait, oh no, I forgot beat heart to catch up. Oh, I need to breathe too, breathe lung. Reverend Ed Horney taught us about that in the one body class. Gee whiz, we'd go nuts if we had to consciously control it all. So our minds control such things subconsciously, but this process is something we can use to our benefits, because habits are from the subconscious too. Things we do over and over become habits, good or bad. Fortunately, bad habits can be broken by retraining, by consciously doing different behavior or thinking something different over and over again till they replace the bad. That is what Jesus was talking about when he said, having eyes, see ye not, and having ears, hear ye not, and do ye not remember. This is how to overcome a hard heart. At that point in time, the apostles had hard hearts. Their subconscious was malfunctioning. So what is the solution? Re-see things on the live stage of your mind. Re-hear things on the live stage of your mind. Do it over and over, just like the woman who touched the hem of Jesus' garment and was healed. She was repeating that thought within her mind over and over until she convinced herself, if I touch the hem of his garment, I shall be whole. If I touch the hem of his garment, I shall be whole. That mental seeing and mental hearing technique will help you remember, but it also will help you with the other functions of the subconscious and the heart, just like memory. And believing is one of those. It's important to realize that that process is a two-way street. So we're going to look at having eyes, how to see, and having ears, how to hear. It's in our minds, on the live stage of our minds. Look at Proverbs chapter 4, verse 20. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 20. My son, attend to my words. Incline your ear. That mental set of speakers on the live stage of your mind that you hear speak. Incline your ear unto my sayings. Let them not depart from thine eyes. That mental view screen on the live stage of your mind. Keep them over and over and over in the midst of your heart, for they are life unto those that find them, and health to all their flesh. Do you want to have vivacity and health? That's how to do it. Verse 23, keep, guard your heart with all diligence, all the different techniques involved with diligence. All of them. For out of it are the issues of life. Put away from thee a froward, a perverse mouth, and perverse lips put far from thee. Control your speech. Let your eyes look right on. Let thine eyelids look straight before thee. Control your thoughts and don't let bad stuff enter into your head. Ponder the path of your feet, your actions, and let all your ways be established. Just like making our feet like hinds' feet, deer's feet, where when the deer climbs the mountain, the front feet test out good places to step, and then when they step forward again, the rear feet step in the exact same place where the front feet had tested. That is letting your ways be established, doubled. Okay? Established. Turn not to the right hand, nor to the left. It ain't worth it. Remove your foot from evil. Step away from evil situations. See, we need to keep our heart with all diligence, all the different techniques involved with being diligent. Guard your unconscious mental processes, for out of our hearts are the issues of life. Many important things in life are issues of the heart, like intentions. Do you get jumped by sudden intentions to do or think evil? Do things tempt you that shouldn't? Well, then we have work to do. Think and speak and act upon positive things instead. Keep doing so till those new positive things sink down into your heart. And then experience the pleasure of good and wholesome intentions and thoughts. It works. Garbage in, garbage out. Healthy stuff in, healthy stuff out. Look at Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12. For the word of God is quick and powerful, and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit. It is so accurate, it can define, was that from soul or was that from spirit? And of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner, a critic. The Word of God is a critic of the thoughts, and the word there is emotions, and intentions. The word there is the considerations of the heart. So emotions and deep considerations are issues of life from the heart. When stuff arises from our hearts, we should compare it with the Word. Let the Word be the critic. And if it doesn't pass muster, then just don't try not to think it, because that doesn't work. Okay, quick. Don't think of an orange. How many of you thought of an orange? Instead, think of something else. Think about a banana instead. Make your mind serve you. Use that tool. Your willpower also is from your heart. It is an issue of life. 1 Corinthians chapter 4. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 5. Therefore judge nothing before the time, until the Lord come, who both will bring to light the hidden things of darkness, and will make manifest the counsels, the wills of the hearts. And then every man shall have praise of God. So your willpower is from your heart. Are you weak? Well, you don't have to stay that way. You can build up your willpower to do what you ought and persevere and not give up. You can work on it just like you work on anything else. Garbage in, garbage out. And it doesn't take that long to do. A good habit can be built in about a month. Okay? Just be consistent. Trust also is an issue of the heart. Look at Proverbs chapter 3. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. See, your heart is your truster. And lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways, which involve actions, acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Now, also, a negative thing, doubt is something from the heart. Now, we don't want that. Look at Mark 11. Mark 11, verse 23. For verily I say unto you that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, and be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt, where? In his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. So, and this is one of those great whosoever whatsoever verses, because it works. Believing is an issue of the heart as well. Look at Romans 10. Romans chapter 10, verse 10. For with the heart man believeth. So your heart is your believer. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness. These things are all issues of the heart. And because they are, that means you can affect your heart in all these respects by utilizing the mental techniques I'm teaching about. Anyone can build good habits. Just decide you want to do so and keep doing whatever habit you want to build, and it will become a habit. That is how you learned how to walk. That is how all those actions we no longer have to think about went into your subconscious. You walked until you no longer had to think about it. Well, you can utilize that process for anything. Well, that's really neat. It's called renewing the mind. Look at Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12, verse 2. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Well, we know the will of God, the Word of God is wonderful, but you want proof? Would you like to see the proof in the five senses realm? Then the way to see that is not to be conformed by the world. You want to have the world have its way with you and conform you into its shape? Heck no. I want to be transformed. Transformation is always better. Changes form into something better. And this works with anything. But in this class, I want to focus on building believing. Jesus was a master of believing. Would you like to believe like he could? Here are some techniques of getting things into our hearts. First of all, number one, your thinker is attached to your believer. Look at Matthew 6. Matthew 6, verse 19. Jesus taught, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, earthly things, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. We were blessed by the teachings of Bishop Pillai, who lived in India, where many Eastern culture things were still observed, the same things observed during biblical times. And so this is a proverb with them where moth is worry and rust is representing fear and thieves are doubts. So lay not up for yourselves treasures, and we're going to see what the treasures are in a little bit, upon earth, where worry and fear doth corrupt, and where thieves, doubts, break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, on heavenly things, where neither moth, worry, or rust, fear, doth corrupt, and where thieves, doubts, don't break through or steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So your treasure is your heart. Your treasure are the thoughts of your heart, where the issues of life emanate. So don't think about earthly things, ponder them, where fear and worry, doubts can mess everything up. Instead, concentrate on heavenly things. Control your thoughts. Now, that's genuine mind control. Ooh. Boy, oh boy, the media loves that one and accuses some Christian groups of mind control. Ooh. Well, I don't want to control your mind. God wants you to control your own mind. You know, athletes can do it, and get-rich schemers can do it, and the world doesn't seem to be bothered by that. But believers controlling their minds, that's dangerous. Yeah, right. Dangerous for who? Dangerous for the devil, that's who. The media are just such hypocrites. Haven't you seen through them yet? They only do and say what they do to get money. They want to shock you into watching their sorry faces to get market share so they can charge more for advertising on their news show. Truth doesn't sell. Good stuff happening doesn't sell well. Stirring up controversy sells. Fear sells. Well, are you eating out of their hand? Remember Abraham? What did he do? Look at Romans chapter 4, verse 19. Romans chapter 4, verse 19. And being not weak in pistis, he considered not his own body now dead. Well, the word not's not there. He considered his body, his own body now dead, when he was about 100 years old, neither yet the deadness of Sarah's womb. He staggered, he doubted not at the promise of God through unbelief, but was strong in pistis, believing, giving glory to God, and being fully persuaded, there it is, that what God had promised, he was able also to perform. Okay, well, can God do what he promises? Sure. Does he know how to do it? Sure. I mean, he's not up there in heaven going, duh, what should I do? No, he knows. And so Abraham persuaded himself that what God had promised, he was able also to perform. Well, that persuasion, how did that happen? With thoughts. See? He considered his body now dead. He looked at the facts. He wasn't in denial, but he weighed those against God's promise and decided God's promise was greater. Mark 11, verse 24. Mark 11, verse 24 says, "Therefore I say unto you, what things soever you desire when you pray, believe that you already have received them," is what the Greek tense expresses there. Believe that you already have received them, and you shall have them. So, your thinker is attached to your believer. The second way of getting things into your heart. Your speaker is attached to your believer. Control what you say. It is a two-way street. And if you don't like what you're saying, change it. Speak positives. If you can't say anything good, then don't say anything at all. Okay? Mark 11, verse 23. Mark 11:23. "For verily I say unto you that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith." The word "say" there, about what we say, about what we believe, occurs 3 times in that verse. It must be important. Yeah, because your speaker is attached to your believer. Boy, I learned that the hard way recently when I had to go through physical therapy. I've been hospitalized in the ICU for so long when I survived COVID that my muscles had atrophied and I couldn't walk. It freaked me out. At first, I couldn't even sit up. I was so weak. I couldn't get out of bed. They had to hoist me in this sling to put me in a wheelchair. And then I got tuckered out even sitting up. So we worked at sitting upright for longer and longer until it came time for me to try to stand up. Talk about all those involuntary muscle movements that we do when we stand up to walk. Well, I had to consciously think of all of them. So they put this strap around me so they could catch me if I fell flat on my face and said, "Okay, John, try standing up." And I caught myself being afraid, but I knew how to counteract it. I knew my speaker is attached to my believer, so I spoke it out loud. I said, "I think I can do this." And I did. Wow. Now I can stand up and walk again without consciously thinking through everything. It said "say" there 3 times in Mark 11 where we declare it, what we believe. Say it. Say it. Don't let yourself speak negatives. Say it. Say it till you convince yourself, because your speaker is attached to your believer. Now, this is even true for God. because he speaks things into being. Look at Hebrews 11. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. It says, now faith, and this is pistis, with the meaning of belief, believing, because this is the Old Testament people in this Hebrews 11, is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is the substance. The word substance is hypostasis, which means foundation. That's the basic meaning of it. Hupo, under, stasis, stand. That which stands under. It's the foundation of things hoped for. Okay, you have a desire, then believe, and that is the real impetus, the foundation for it. Believing is the evidence of things not seen. Remember when Abraham believed God and God counted it to him for righteousness? Well, that was before God told him about what would happen to his progeny. It was before God made the covenant with him. It was before he was circumcised. But it was signed and sealed and delivered concerning Isaac then. Well, how many years was it till Isaac was born? Quite a few. But it signed the deal then. Believing is the substance. It is the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Through pistis, we understand that the ages were repaired by the rhema, the spoken words of God. So here it is. So that things which are seen, what we see around us now, were not made of things that were in existence. In other words, the things that are seen came out of thin air because God spoke them into being. That's the power of words. Romans 4:17. Romans 4:17 is another example of this. As it is written, I have made thee, Abraham, a father of many nations, before him whom he believed, even God, who quickens the dead, and calls those things which be not as though they were, because he speaks them into being. So your speaker is attached to your believer. It's a two-way street. What you believe comes out of your mouth, and what you keep saying over and over and over again becomes what you believe. The third way of bringing things into your heart is your actor is attached to your believer. This also is a two-way street. What we believe is manifested in our actions. So it's like if you look at a chair and the chair looks rickety, do you think it will hold you if you try to sit in it? Well, you may not even sit in it because you don't believe it'll hold you. Or you may wonder if it does, and so you'll put your hand on it and you try to move it, see if the joints in the chair are all attached. And then if you believe that the chair will hold you, then you act on it. Your actor is attached to your believer. But it's a two-way street because it helps you build believing. So when you pray for rain, bring an umbrella. Okay, your actor is attached to your believer. See, what we believe is manifested in our actions. Well, how are you tempted to act in some situations? Well, if you don't like that, stop yourself from acting that way and do actions commensurate with your believing goals. Here's a whole section that people misinterpret concerning faith. Look at James chapter 2. James chapter 2. They apply the wrong meaning of pistis to this section. We're going to apply the correct meaning and draw out the lessons that are here. James chapter 2, verse 14. What doth it profit, my brethren, though a man say he has pistis, faith, and have not works? Can pistis alone save him? All right. Well, people interpret this as having faith to get saved, and then you demonstrate it by works. Well, do we get saved by works? No, we get saved by grace. So that's the first strike against this. The second strike against this, using faith in that way, is that later on the examples given are of Abraham and Rahab. Old Testament. So this is believing pistis, like they had in the Old Testament before faith came. See? So, what doth it profit, my brethren, though a man say he may have believing, and have not corresponding action? Can believing alone save him? All right. Context. See? If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say to them, "Oh, depart in peace, be warmed and filled," notwithstanding you give them not those things which are needed to the body, what's the profit? Even so, pistis, believing, if it hath not corresponding action, is dead, being alone. Yea, a man may say, you have believing, and I have corresponding action. Well, show me your faith, believing, without your corresponding action. You can't do it. And I will show you my believing by my corresponding action. Because your actor is attached to your believer. Thou believest that there's one God. Well, whoopee fizz. You do well. The devils also believe and tremble. But wilt thou know, O vain man, that believing without corresponding action is dead? Because if you don't act on it, do you really believe? Was not Abraham our father justified by corresponding action when he'd offered Isaac his son upon the altar? Okay. Did he kill Isaac? No. He was on the route to do that. He was acting on his believing, but then because he was acting, God was able to steer him to what he wanted, and there was a ram there caught in the thicket, then he offered that. You see how believing wrought with his works, his corresponding action, and by corresponding action was believing made perfect. Well, how is believing made perfect? When you get the result. And the scripture was fulfilled which said, Abraham believed God, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. You see then how that by belief, by corresponding action, a man is justified, and not by pistis, believing only. Likewise also was not Rahab the harlot justified by works, corresponding action, when she had received the messengers and had sent them out another way. For as the body without the spirit is dead, so pistis, believing, without corresponding action is dead also. So your actor is attached to your believer. Look at James chapter 1, verse 2. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptations. Huh? What? Is he nuts? Knowing this, that the trying of your pistis works patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. So, here in this context, the pistis here is regarding a need, that you may want nothing. Well, because you had a need. But let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire. When does patience have her perfect work? When you get what you were believing for. See, so that's why the trying of your faith here, your believing, works patience. Verse 5, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that gives to all men liberally, and upbraids not, and it shall be given him. Because you know what? If you're acting on your believing, it's a lot easier to steer the car when it's moving than when it's standing still. And God will give you wisdom. That's how you believe for it. But let him ask in believing, nothing wavering. For he that wavers is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. See, wavering is a quantifiable thing, either weak or strong, okay? So that's pistis. It fits with that pattern. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. Again, this is for needs. See how that fits with the pattern for pistis? That's believing. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, because your thinker is attached to your believer. See? That's how it works. You know, Jesus said, ask and you'll find, or seek and you'll find, ask and you shall receive it, and knock and it shall be opened to you. Well, all those things, ask and seek and knock, are present tense in the Greek. So you just keep asking, you keep seeking, you keep knocking until you knock the door down. And then patience will have their perfect work, and you get what you're believing for. See, impediments to this process of getting things into your heart are ignorance and fear. Because if we could see the spiritual landscape like God sees, we'd have no trouble believing. It would be so obvious. It'd be a slam dunk to believe. You see the benefits. You see how it works. So, you know, if you ever have difficulty convincing yourself of the power of God, a little light ought to go off in our head. Oh, I need more information. Where'd you get that from? From God and his word. Yeah. Remember James chapter 1? God gives his wisdom liberally. You know, wisdom is in that list with all those sonship rights. We get wisdom as liberally as we get righteousness. We get wisdom as liberally as we get sanctification in that list in 1 Corinthians 1:30. So get your wisdom. Fear is another thing to guard against. In Job chapter 3, verse 25, Job said, for the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me. See, fear is believing in reverse. But there's different kinds of fear in the Bible. There's one kind of fear of fearing God. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. the fear, and this is reverence kind of fear. The reverence of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. All right? It doesn't mean we should be terrified of God. Proverbs 3:25 is another kind of fear. Proverbs 3:25. Be not afraid of sudden fear. All right? That's part of our survival instinct. When we're in danger, our body reacts. Adrenaline is produced, and the fight-flight reflex results. Well, don't let that shake you, but, react appropriately to save your life and the lives of those you love. That kind of fear is sudden fear. But the enemy kind of fear is the other kind of fear. Fear of failure, fear of losing face, fear of loss, unreasonable fears, like being afraid of mice or spiders. Believe me, those little critters are more afraid of you than you are of them. Or other phobias. Now, look, I'm not making light of people's phobias. They seem real to them, and there's all kinds of them, but they are unnatural. For example, trypanophobia, fear of injections. Well, something caused that in people, some past event. Well, you know what? I had trypanophobia, fear of injections. I think it started when I broke my arm real bad and I had to have anesthesia. And I remember vividly the anesthesiologist coming up to me and holding a big needle on a tube full of greenish liquid. That would scare any 6-year-old. After that, I used to get lightheaded whenever I got a shot. I almost fainted once. So for a while, I was afraid when I had to have a shot. Trypanophobia. I didn't want to have some dumb reflex reaction. I was afraid I might faint. Well, after I learned about believing and fear, I said to myself, this fear is illogical. I want to beat it. So I would tell the nurse ahead of time, I might need to put my head down if I get lightheaded. Or if she was cute, I'd say, you're supposed to distract me while the other nurse sneaks up behind with the needle. Now I can handle it, and it doesn't bother me. Of course, it helps if you don't watch them doing it. But if we catch ourselves reacting with fear, a little light ought to go off in our head. Oh, I need more information. Because when you find out and look at it from God's perspective, what are you afraid of? Fear is the enemy. Fear, we were taught, is sand in the machinery of life. Fear is rust on your zipper. Fear is a nick on your squeegee. Don't allow yourself to fear. Take a bite out of it and spit it out. Aggressively attack fear with all three of the ways you can get things into your heart: positive thoughts, positive speech, and appropriate action. Now, at this point, I thought it beneficial to insert some stuff in the teaching from Napoleon Hill and Norman Vincent Peale. At this point, we were taught many things about how to build believing, like the camera technique, where you picture it and you take the picture in your mind, and all of that. Well, that may work for some people, but it may not work for others. Well, there's a lot of different techniques. Keep your heart with all diligence, all the different ways. Now, in this stuff, especially in Napoleon Hill, there may be some worldly stuff in it, but we can filter that out, because it can be used by saint and sinner alike. Because everyone has a mind, and the human mind will work in certain ways. So the core teaching of Think and Grow Rich is 13 principles where thoughts are things. Thinking a certain way, he says, gives you the power to magnetize and attract anything you desire into your life. By applying these 13 principles that Napoleon Hill came up with, you can attract almost anything that you desire. Now, this is a more worldly book, so you have to filter it, but the principles are there. Hill talks about tapping into something called infinite intelligence. Well, we advocate tapping into God, all right? So principle number 1, if you want to receive something, is desire. The first step in attracting what you want is to cultivate a desire. Specifically, Hill says, a burning desire. He says you have to viscerally want it. That means you really want it. And then you create a vision of your life where you have it. See? Well, that's like Jesus saying, having eyes, see ye not. See? You rehearse it on the mental stage of your mind. Okay? So, he says that by coupling longing and vision and persistence, you can attain your objective. Anything, he says. Well, we Christians don't sell out to the world. We sell out to God. Okay? We don't just want anything. We want what the Word says. See? But you still need to build desire, because you can't be casual about prayer. His second principle is faith, what he calls faith. Once you have your desire, you need to have faith. Faith is what he calls, Hill calls, and, quote, eternal elixir which gives life, power, and action to the impulse of thought. See, he says it transforms your ordinary thoughts into a spiritual force. Well, it does that because it connects the physical world with the spiritual world. See? Principle number 3 is self-suggestion. If you want to maximize your faith, you need to monitor how you talk to yourself. Self-talk is the words in the mental scripts that you tell yourself on the live stage of your mind. If you say, I struggle with stuff, I'll never get what I want, well, then that's what you'll get. Your self-talk starts in your conscious thinking mind. But if you repeat a certain phrase in your head enough times, it will seep into your subconscious. Hill calls that process auto-suggestion. The Word calls it renewing your mind. We consciously shape our self-talk, and then we can control what transpires in our lives, because we speak the Word to ourselves. Then his principle number 4 is knowledge. Knowledge attracts abundance when it is organized and intelligently directed through practical plans of action. Now, this is not just knowledge in general. This is knowledge specific to what you're believing for. So we need to learn, if you want to believe for anything, get the knowledge concerning it and then make a plan. That's what this is. We get our knowledge from God and not the world. Principle number 5, according to Think and Grow Rich, is imagination. One of the most famous Napoleon Hill quotes is, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. All right? Well, if you want to magnetize things and attract them to you, start with an idea. Use your imagination to picture things in your mind of what you want, and that starts the process. But we don't want to imagine worldly things, just get rich, because there's a whole lot of impediment that comes with that, a whole lot of headache. I'd rather believe for things that I really need and moderation. But we imagine wholesome things, not worldly things. Step 6, according to Napoleon Hill, is planning. Have a well-defined plan of how to achieve your goals, and that's just as important as knowing what you need, okay? And then be prepared to do course corrections if things go wrong. See? So, plan. If you are believing for something, make a plan of how you're going to get it. Be concrete. Principle number 7 is decision. A vague wish is the opposite of a decision. If you only have a hazy idea of what you desire, then you're never going to tap into the power that's available. So, he says people without a clearly defined purpose procrastinate and put off achieving their goals, because you can't hit a target you can't see. Principle number 8 is persistence. Never give in and never give up is what I taught. Especially when you're feeling low, that's the time to double down and persevere. Okay? Be patient until patient has its perfect work, until you get what you're believing for. See? Because the most successful people are not the ones who never make mistakes. They are the ones who know how to suffer setbacks without giving up. Then, the principle number 9 is what he calls mastermind. See, he says you must do it yourself, but you can't do it alone. That sounds like a paradox. But you have other people help. If you want to succeed, you're going to need help. So, find people who can help you and work together with them. We mastermind with other believers in the body of Christ, and our ministries work together. Principle number 10 is what he calls transmutation. Now, this is where Napoleon Hill starts to step in it. He starts to step into the spiritual realm, but not necessarily the right spiritual realm. He says, here is one of the secrets of the success system he wrote. There are certain emotions which evoke a mental state that allows access to what he called infinite intelligence. He says every feeling has a vibration, and for you to come into harmony with the universal mind, you must be resonating on the same frequency as what you want to receive. Now, what we would say in the Word is you have to renew your mind to God's Word so that your emotions and your intentions line up with the Word, and then you'll be able to hear from God. Okay? He says if you want the infinite intelligence to give you more money, start feeling abundant now. Use positive emotions to make your mind oscillate on a better frequency so you can be in position to ask for and receive what you really want. Well, what we say is control your emotions so that your mind works for you and doesn't block you or impede you from believing for the things that you want. See, we say that we must align our thinking with the Word of God. That principle 11, the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is the power center of your mental activity, It has dominion over every vital function in your body, always on the job, processing material, energy, and thought, and transforming it to maintain life. The subconscious is also the part of the mind that transmutes ideas, plans, and dreams into material form. Well, it's true because your believer is attached to your heart. It's from your heart, and what you believe, you receive. And then principle 12, the brain. Hill asserts that the brain is similar to a radio. Just like a radio, your brain operates at specific frequencies. In the case of your brain, these frequencies are emotion, love, hate, despair, fear, confidence. A radio can only provide sound when the transmitter and the receiver are set to the right frequency. So if you want your brain to provide wealth, then you have to make sure your emotions reflect that frequency. Well, we're not after wealth to think and grow rich. We're after the kind of abundance that comes from God, which is far more than physical wealth, because a man's abundance consists not of the things which he possesses. Our abundant life is the list of all those 7 categories of abundance that are in 2 Corinthians chapter 7. And if you want more of those in your life, that's what we think for, not just to get rich, all right? And then principle 13, the sixth sense is what he calls it. And that is where when you finally put everything together, what he calls the infinite intelligence makes contact with you and you get what you were believing for. Well, that's baloney. We get our sixth sense, quote unquote, from God. God will work in our heart and help us get to where we want to go. He'll either tell us or he'll guide us. He'll open doors and shut doors so we get there. So Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, is a worldly book, but we can still glean principles from it. Norman Vincent Peale, with The Power of Positive Thinking, on the other hand, was a Christian minister. He applies the principles in a godly fashion. So I'll share a few keys. Believe in yourself. Self-confidence leads to success. Give and take. Care about others, and they'll make them care about you. Don't be alone. You shouldn't face your problems on your own. Your thoughts are the key to overcoming your problems because your thinker is attached to your believer. He says, don't worry, be happy. How you can overcome the destructive and unhealthy habit of worrying. Worry is a thing you don't want to do. You want to get rid of that. Give yourself a break when things go wrong. Well, just make the right choices and don't get depressed. And then never lose heart. You should always see the positive even when facing problems. And then his 8th idea or key is Bible. How the faith from your word can help you save your situation and solve your problems. Now, in the last few minutes, while I'm on this subject, I need to address something else. Many of us were taught believing equals receiving. Now, that's a succinct summation, but if stated that way, it begs the question about its opposite. If believing equals receiving, then does receiving equal believing? When people have negative things happen in their lives, does that mean they were somehow believing for it? Well, danger, Will Robinson, danger, danger. The oversimplification of this subject has opened the door for much spiritual abuse by legalistic Pharisees. Sure, there definitely are times that we screw up and it's our fault and bad things happen. But is that always the case? No. The spiritual landscape involves many unseen causes and effects, many of which are beyond our control. You know, what about those people who live downwind from some factory and are sick all the time? Is that their fault? What about if there is a riot outside your front door in your hometown? Is that your fault? You know what the bumper sticker says? Stuff happens. Although it's not quite worded that way. Sometimes we just can't prevent stuff from happening. We just have to react with wisdom if it does. You see, receiving does not always correlate with our fears or lack of believing, etc. Job chapter 2, verse 3, situation with Job. Job chapter 2, verse 3, the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there's none like him in the earth? A perfect and upright man, one that reverences God and eschews evil. And still he holds fast his integrity, although thou, adversary, moved me against him to destroy him without cause." See, sometimes stuff happens without cause. This is worded in Job as if God did it, but we know that this is according to the Hebrew idiom of permission, in which active verbs sometimes imply the permission of the action, like Exodus 4:21, when God said to Moses, "I'll harden Pharaoh's heart." But God wasn't working against himself to both call Moses to deliver his people and then motivate Pharaoh to do the opposite. No. It's the idiom of permission. God permitted it. The adversary is the one who attacked Job and caused all those terrible calamities and made him sick. God didn't do that. And it was without cause. Psalm 35:7. Psalm 35, verse 7. "For without cause they've hid for me their net in a pit, which without cause they've digged for my soul." So sometimes there's just evil people who lash out. Sure, we do dumb stuff, and sure, there are some consequences. But on the other hand, sometimes we're attacked without cause. Proverbs 1:11. Proverbs 1:11, talking about those kind of people. "If they say, 'Come with us, let us lay wait for blood. Let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause.'" See, sometimes you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, did we do something to deserve it? Boy, I tell you, there's almost nothing more exasperating than to have some Pharisee breathing down your neck, blaming you when something bad happens, instead of just loving you and helping you through it. You know, figuring out what happened and why it may come later. But the first thing is to get you healed and back up on your feet. I shared an example in one of my books about an incident that occurred with some Pharisees and some organization. They had a walk-in refrigerator at one of the facilities, and the door to the fridge was in a bad state of repair. And when somebody inside the refrigerator needed to come out, sometimes it required them to push really hard and even slam their door or shoulder against the door from the inside to get it open, because the emergency latch didn't work. This is plunger thing you're supposed to push and it will open the door. Well, it didn't work. So they'd have to really push hard on the door and slam against it. Well, one time a believer in that organization was just walking past the fridge at the precise time that somebody inside was trying to get out, and the door suddenly flew open and it hit him in the head. And you know, it hit him so hard he had a cut and had to go to the emergency room. It's pretty bad. Well, the Pharisees in that outfit confronted this person and told him he must have done something wrong or ignored a warning from God for this to have happened. And they raked the poor guy over the coals because he was just in that place at the wrong time and he got injured. Well, what was he supposed to do? Well, what would you do? He was humbled. He loved God. He wanted to be right. So he considered the possibility that those legalists might be correct and he had done something or feared something or ignored something where, it was his fault that it happened. I mean, he thought through all the events that led up to that injury over and over. And he tried to see where possibly he could have missed something, anything. But he honestly couldn't think of a single thing. But his abusers insisted that he must have done something evil for that to have happened. You know what he did? He finally admitted to something that he just made up to get them off his back. Ooh. That's a classic example of this concept of stuff happening. If there was anyone to blame in that incident, it was the legalists themselves for not getting their stupid refrigerator fixed. It was an accident waiting to happen. Consequently, in my Jesus Keys to Life class, I did not teach, quote, believing equals receiving. Instead, I termed it believing brings receiving. All right? Another thing I have to cover is the idea that pisteuo does not mean to believe, but it means to trust. Now, the words believe and trust are related, but there's a separate word for trust in Greek, which is peitho. Its basic meaning means to persuade. However, when it is intransitive, when there's no direct object to peitho, no word there in the accusative case, it means to trust. It's one of the signposts for that word. Trusting and believing involve being persuaded by words. However, trusting implies something ongoing. While we saw from the multiple occurrences of pisteuo and pistis that their primary believing meaning involved a single incident to believe for a need to be met, it also involved asking, as in prayer, and mental activity was involved. So I think I'm really solid on the fact that pisteuo means to believe and not to trust. So that's all we have time for tonight, but I trust that this has been food for thought. No pun intended. Bless you.